Good morning, good afternoon, good evening. Welcome to my channel, The Coherence Path, All Roads Lead to You. And this video is going to be another explanation and sharing of a painting and how it came about. So in 1997, I had been my car was hit by two different cars 2 weeks apart. I had a diving incident that put a severe strain on my neck, and consequently, I had no balance. My eyes were tracking differently, so I had double vision. I had nausea. I walked into a wall. When I drove my car, I thought my car was spinning counterclockwise. I had extreme fatigue. I couldn't remember anything. I had no short term memory like the guy in the movie Memento. I was writing post it notes on the wall in an attempt to track conversations over the phone or in person with my doctors or the few friends that were still visiting me. Prior to this, had been extremely athletic. I was running 30 miles a week or more. I was doing martial arts, mountain biking, weightlifting, working full time, and all the rest. What I was not doing I was not doing art because I had no interest in doing art. I had done some art as a kid, but fell out of love with it and had lots of frustrations about it. Anyway, a longer story is on my YouTube video about my near death experience, but the universe told me to paint. I had set up the situation where I could exit this body. I had had near death experience when I was a kid, and I knew that we were just observing and engaging life through this human form. So I was, due to all the physical uh, stress and trauma of those accidents. In fact, I couldn't remember anything. Girlfriend I had for 3 years phoned me from another country in the Middle East and said that she married somebody her parents had arranged for her to marry. My friends had stopped coming to visit me because they couldn't see what was wrong with me, because on the outside I looked normal, but on the inside I was a wreck. I spent 9 months going to the local hospital, OHSU, and two neurologists who had national renown couldn't figure out what was wrong with me. So I was fed up with life and ready to check out. Well, at the precipice of me making that decision to exit my body, a voice spoke to me loudly, audibly in the room to my physical ears and told me to do art. And that just set me off. That was the last thing I wanted to do. I was done with this experience of this life, and I knew I was just going to come back and live another one. So why not just reset everything? Um, so anyway, and you have to forgive this canvas. It's pretty wrinkled. Some time ago, I had to cut all my paintings, not all, but a lot of them off the canvas stretchers because I just didn't have room. I just don't have room in my place for stacking up, a couple hundred paintings. So I just cut them all off of the canvas stretcher bars, thinking, oh, this will be fine. But now, as I pull them out, I realize I'm going to have to iron them and straighten them out and store them better. I've never had the impulse to paint or to sell the paintings Um, but that may just because it wasn't time. Maybe it's time now. Anyway, I'll tell you about this painting. I think this painting was the very first one, first or second one. It was within the first three that I did after I was struck by light and transported out of my body. My body collapsed on the floor, and I was taken consciously and showed a lot of different scenes. Some people, they go to the meadow. That was the first place I went to, and I was spoken to and told that I could just be healed and let go of all the personal regrets I had, which were many at that point, because I had made some really bad choices. Um, at 33, yeah, I didn't have much to look back on. But when I exited that experience and woke up in my body, the first thing I wanted to do was paint, even though prior to the experience, I was in a very heated argument with the universe and refused to paint. And then it miraculously supplied me with canvases and paints, even though I didn't want them. They just showed up. And I still didn't want to do anything. Didn't have any desire to paint or do art. But this painting represents one uh, conscious experience that I had. It was like a place I was taken to, and it was this incredibly wide. I should repaint this painting. You can tell by the painting it's very immature. Like the brush strokes, the hands don't. They just look like like a doll's hands. The body, it's somewhat proportioned, but it's just really rudimentary. It kind of looks like a machine, and that's kind of the way I started viewing the body after that. So I realized, oh, I'm just consciously living through this body, which is serving me. It's kind of like a machine, though, of course, it's alive. I know that it's alive. But anyway, I was in this, I was transported to this environment, and it was just a huge, wide open plain that went for miles and miles and miles. And there were all these bumps on the ground. And I remember I was out of my body. I was looking out over this wide plain. It was real arid and hot. It well, at least appeared that way. I didn't feel any heat. I just felt the perception of it because I didn't have a body. But I was looking at all these lumps. I'm like, what the heck are those? But I had this sense that there was a lot of consciousness present. And the sun, the light source up above, was just this incredibly beautiful, loving, indescribable presence, just observing neutrally everything. And then one of the bumps sort of peeled back, and rising out of a fetal position, this figure rose. And as it rose, it was like it was being born, and it just basked itself in that light, and the light just penetrated it and turned it almost invisible. It was just, it became a physical, from transferring from a dormant, seemingly dormant thing to something very transcendent. And then I realized that all the bumps were individuated units of consciousness, or separate souls, or pieces of God, however you want to frame it, and that they were all existing within their own consciousness, closed off from greater consciousness, because they were exploring their own consciousness. And that's what we're doing here. We're exploring really our own consciousness. Everything in life is a allegory or metaphor for just learning to love ourselves, to learn how to love, and to learn how to be kind. And that's pretty much it. I mean, our jobs are about that, our relationships, um, everything we go through during the day is an opportunity where within ourselves we make choices. And that's all we're doing. We're making choices between being conscious and aware or just reverting back to the practiced thought processes, beliefs, and ideas we've had for however long we've had them. We're not running on a program. There's no subconscious mind. There's the spectrum of our own consciousness. It's like a radio. It has many, many channels. Our consciousness can carry and embody thoughts and ideas we have on such a subtle level that we don't even hear them for the most part, um, until we focus on them. Like we might have a dislike or a memory about something that we dislike, let's say about food. But because we're always choosing the foods we like, we're not even aware of that conscious part of ourselves until maybe we go to a friend's house and they make a dish that has that food item in it. And then we're up against the choice of either being polite and kind and, partaking in a little bit of it or communicating, hey, I don't want you to be offended that I'm not eating these, whatever. I just have never liked those. And if we want to go deeper, we could sit down and ask ourselves, well, why is it that we don't like that? And there might be that there's a memory about it. Maybe we were forced to eat it as a kid. Or maybe while we were eating that, something happened that we don't have a nice memory about. Or it just may be that we don't like the taste of it, and that's perfectly fine. But that in itself is still a choice and belief, because if we were on a desert island, had nothing else to eat, we'd probably eat that item. I remember my family were ranchers and farmers and carpenters and stuff, and we had all kinds of foods we ate, and they were all good. But my parents did eat a lot of spam. I wouldn't say a lot, but it was definitely something we ate pretty often. Not because it was cheap, but because my dad really loved spam. I think my mom did too. And they would fry it, they put it on sandwiches, serve it with eggs in the morning. But I couldn't stand spam. I just hated it. So I never ate spam after I moved out when I was 14 the first time, 15 the second time. If I saw spam in a grocery store, I just like, if somebody was with me, I'd tell them a story like, yeah, that stuff's nasty, or it's got all that gelatiny crap in it, you know. So I'd consciously bring up this thing I didn't like, though on the most of the time, even for years, I wouldn't even think about spam. But as soon as I saw it, those memories came up and all the emotions. But one time I spent about a month on an island off the coast of Belize. I was snorkeling for a month. It was a beautiful holiday, seeing all the wildlife in the ocean. And on the trip back, it was supposed to be a 2-hour trip back to the mainland. Well, the boat decided to leave in the storm. And they reassured us, everything's okay, But it turned out that the boat got a hole in it. the captain had no radio or cell phone. Nobody on board had cell phones. I think this might have been before most people had cell phones. But there was no cell phone service anyway, so it didn't matter. The boat filled with water. The motor started going whack, 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 whack. And that trip over the course of 11 hours was hell. There was 26 people on board. It was raining cats and dogs. The swells were about 20, 30 feet tall. That sailboat was poorly driven by the captain, who spent more time flirting with his girlfriend. He was about 80 years old. I don't know how old she was, but probably in her 30s or 40s. And, didn't seem to care about all these guests on board. But anyway, we left in the morning and it was dark. We ended up finding this small mangrove outcropping, and we saw this covered canoe, this really long canoe. It had a bunch of stuff on it. But we saw that there was, because it was raining so hard, there was people underneath the tarp on it. So we went over there. We put this little tiny dinghy. It was like a 4 foot by 3 foot little boat. And a guy rowed over there. There was 26 people on board, and there was like 8 kids. And sure enough, there was people on that canoe, and they offered to take us over to this little tiny island that we could see lights. We could see a couple lights in the distance, about, I don't know, about a mile away, 3/4 of a mile. Anyway, we basically left the captain in his ship and his boat, and we went on this canoe, and they had a little outboard motor, and we all piled on there, and that canoe was only sticking out of the water about 3 inches. We finally made it over there, and then we got stuck on a sandbar. All us guys jumped out and pulled the canoe off the sandbar and onto the shore. And the people on this tiny little island, they had heard all the commotion out in the water, and they came out and helped. And anyway, we all got, there was a small building there, and there was a restaurant, it turned out. They would host people there, and it was very rudimentary if you've ever been to Belize or some of these other countries. But, it was past midnight, and they were kind. None of us had eaten for, by that time, 12, 13 hours. And they served us a bunch of food in this big cafeteria they had. And what did they serve? They served fried spam, and then they had these little flour puff bread things they deep fried, and there was pork and beans. Pork and beans is another thing I can't stand. My parents ate that a lot. I just hated pork and beans. It's just disgusting. I just not one that likes pork and beans or baked beans, and just don't like the flavor of it. I don't mind the flavor of spam, but I still don't want to eat it. I mean, if it's fried. Anyway, so they come out with these huge trays of fried spam, these little fried dough balls, and baked beans, and I'll tell you, I couldn't stop eating that stuff. There was no complaint by me. It was the most fantastic food I'd had, well, for 12 hours. We were all very hungry. We were cold because we'd just been out in the open on the deck of a sailboat in the rain for, 11, 12, 13 hours. I remember one time when the water was the boat was filling full of water, and the engine was going whack, whack, whack as the fan on the engine was hitting the water, rising around it. I just closed my eyes because I thought, well, maybe we're all going to sink and die. I closed my eyes and I asked the question, am I going to die today? And the answer just came back really calm, steady. Nope. So I thought, oh, okay, I'm not going to die, so I'm just going to have fun then. So I started singing theme song to Gilligan's Island, trying to cheer people up. I remember this guy that was working for the captain, the only crewman on the boat. Um, at one point, we were just hitting these big swells and crashing down. His name was Rudy. He was an African American guy. His skin was black as coal, and he had these big eyes. Very nice guy. But he was hanging onto the rail right next to me, and we were crouched down, our knees all bent, crouched down in a squatting position, trying to ride out all the ups and downs of the boat. And he looked at me and he said, "The boat's got a hole in it. The engine's going to stop." And I knew the next thing he was going to say was, "We're all going to die." He was terrified. But this was after I had asked that question whether I was going to die that day. Before he could utter that next question, I was looking him directly in the eye and I said, "Rudy, we're going to be okay. We're going to be fine." I might have said something else, I don't remember. But when I told him that, he calmed down and he was fine after that. And that to me is grace, where, you know, your consciousness steps in on some level and lets you know that just accept what is and write it out and just trust. You know? So anyway, our beliefs and thoughts and ideas in the spectrum of our consciousness are subtly, very subtly present within our consciousness. My dislike for spam was still out there. I hadn't eaten spam at that point for maybe, I don't know, 30 years, 25 years. Um, but the new environment and situation and the belief that it would help me nutritionally and make me feel better changed my idea of spam. So this painting is about how awareness at some point when we kind of get a third point of view of our own ingrained life, the choices we're making, the things we're responding to, how when we step outside of that and observe it from a third person point of view, realizing that we're immortal beings, that instantaneously peels back the veil of how meaningful things may be or may not be. We can take a broader view of our life and realize, okay, I'm here, I'm living a human life. Yep, it might suck right now, or oh, it might be great, but it's temporary. That there's part of us that is way more expansive and aware if we step into it. And being able to step into it, is different for everybody. I mean, we can meditate and receive a state of calm within ourselves, or just start living in the present moment, like hearing the sounds of nature, feeling the soft feeling of a fabric or a puppy or a cat, holding hands with somebody, just really feeling what our senses are telling us. That's a way to step into the present moment. And it takes us out of maybe our thoughts that are just running around in our head like a monkey. And the more we can do that, the more we can just observe the monkey or the ego and just go, oh, well, that's what it does. It comes up with these thoughts, worry about this and worry about that, judgment about this, judgment about that. But I'm not that. That's just clouds in my sky, and I'm the sky. I'm the boundless, free will awareness that is observing it all. And while it is meaningful because it helps me understand how to grow, to learn how to love, to learn how to be kind, it's still the human lens that right now I'm in, but I will let go of as soon as I'm physically done with this life and this body. So when I look at this painting now, I just think of school. All these beings, submerged in the process of learning. And it all happens within ourselves. We think we're running around doing all kinds of things out in the world, but we're really just learning with things within ourselves. If we ever question that, then remember conflict or resistance you have within a relationship or job or physical health or whatever, how we're wrestling with something, but really all the decisions and learning is happening inside of ourselves. We might walk away from, you know, stubbing our toe on a piece of concrete. I did that once and broke my toe. You walk away from that situation. What you're left with is, oh, I shouldn't have shouted so loud. I might have woke somebody up. Or, oh, I should have been more mindful when I was walking. Or you might have something more negative, like, why does that always happen to me? I can't believe this is ridiculous. Now I got a broken toe, I got to limp around, and it becomes a story that we tell ourselves and carry it around. But all the lessons are happening inside of our consciousness. We think we're running around doing things, but we're really not. Oh, I'm going to my job and it's got all this drama, it's all their fault. But the drama, all the choices are happening within our own consciousness. Everything else is just a less. It's like a classroom. But typically we get distracted by what we see, hear, taste, smell, and we think that's the issue. When the senses can be effectively used to bring us into the present moment, listening to a beautiful song, birds chirping, smell of a good meal, taste of a good meal. Anyway, I find that when I sit with my paintings, I kind of get different things out of it at different times. Um, I titled my paintings "Energy Imagery" after my experience, and it may have been from this painting itself, um, because it was about how our energy shifts and changes. It's funny when we shift into a more state of awareness, everything shifts really fast. Everything sort of opens up. After that, things will manifest quicker because our consciousness is actually more closely engaged with greater consciousness, expanded consciousness. The resistances, the bulk of resistance, the belief that I'm just a human being and I can't control anything, that stops a lot of momentum of manifestations. But once we become aware, and it's being more in a state of awareness, um, it opens up a huge uh, flow of communication and that's why things start manifesting quicker. Um, and that just means the lessons are going to come that much faster. But it's going to be easier because we'll be able to see, oh, geez, I said this, and all of a sudden it happened. You know, you learn that lesson real quick. You better shut your mouth. Watch what you say. Uh, it's happened to me so many times. I can't even, I wish I had a book listing all the circumstances, but, it's happened on more than one occasion because I do construction. I might be talking to a client and say, yeah, I tried it. They might ask me, oh, do you use sheetrock? I'll say, yeah, I don't really like sheetrock. I prefer not to do it. I prefer to do things with wood. Sure enough, then a week or two later, it could be the same day or the next day, a client I've had for years who, of course, I'm going to do pretty much anything for because they're now my friends. They'll say, hey, can you come fix this sheetrock? And, I feel obliged to help them out, some small thing. But my mind always goes back to, oh, I remember just saying that I didn't want to do that. And there it is. And I remember, well, no, I won't talk into that because I don't want to influence anybody's consciousness in a way that they may not be. Anyway, there's a lot of examples, but that's one of them. So as we become more aware, and I'm not saying I'm enlightened. First of all, I don't believe in enlightenment. I believe we're always just in school. There's no new, energy shifting the planet and new consciousness changing the world and all this. I think it's all a bunch of baloney. It's all grifting. It's all these gurus and people trying to convince people, and it's people who are just without hope and they want to fix. Um, and but as our consciousness grows, then we just learn quicker because we really don't have a choice at that point once we become more aware. But it never ends. We're not going to be sitting on a cloud somewhere someday. So it's better for us to be realistic and practical and become more aware as we can because we know we're just going to continue to become even more aware. I can't even tell you how many times I've learned the same lesson multiple times, read the same sentence and gotten more out of it over the years, or what have you. So we're constantly learning because the veil uh, of the human perspective is persistent. The ego persistently comes up with ideas about control and reaction, response and resistance. The mind doesn't remember. It doesn't like reboot when you're thinking about a decision. It doesn't come up and say, hey, remember this other thing you did. Remember, you're more enlightened now. That doesn't always happen. It doesn't happen much, really. You're going through your day and it went, oh, geez, I should have known better than that. Why did I do that? Little things, like whatever it is. So this painting is very instrumental and helpful for me when I look at it because it reminds me that I'm in school. School uh, session is in, and I have a choice to wake up, to broaden my awareness, take a little broader glimpse before I go back to class, moment to moment. Anyway, I hope you've enjoyed this painting. Sorry it's in a little bit of a wrinkled shape there, but um, if you want to just sit with one of my paintings and not hear me talk, just turn the volume down and just maybe let your own awareness create opportunities for questions or ideas to come up within yourself. You know, here's an idea. It's time to let loose and break out of your shell and become the person you really want to be. That could be in a human sense, like you've been at a job or doing a certain thing, religion, whatever. You just decide, screw it, I'm done with that. I'm just gonna walk another direction and do what I want to do. That could be a metaphor for that. Anyway, enjoy your day. Thanks for stopping by. Subscribe if you want, and I'll see you on another video, maybe. I appreciate your time.